What's up, guys? I wanted to come on here and just kind of be vulnerable once again and just kind of share with you just a little bit of the kind of insight of a believer and just kind of like the real aspects of, a Christian. So by the title of this video, you could probably tell that recently I had an experience with like real genuine doubt that I hadn't had in quite a while. I don't often doubt my faith. In fact, it's very rare because I feel like over the years, God has blessed me with enough wisdom to actually be able to solidify my faith in a way where I know why I believe in Jesus. And I'm able to articulate that well. And I'm able to actually ground myself even within the minor doubts. I'm able to quickly kind of like turn that around and be like, okay, no, this is the reason I believe in Jesus, X, Y, and Z. But yesterday, for some reason, I encountered this real heavy weight of doubt that just really kind of shook me for a moment. And it all started yesterday. I went to church. I went to my parents' church. My parents and I go to two different churches, not for any like real particular reason. I just have my preferred church I go to, and they have their home church. But I went to theirs yesterday because there was a speaker that I wanted to hear from. His name is Alex McFarland, and he's an evangelist, and he's like in the field that I want to step into. And so I meet him after the service, and it's an amazing conversation. In fact, I just recorded a radio show episode with him today. It was a wonderful opportunity. That'll be out this weekend. But anyway, like I'm talking with him outside of the church. And it's wonderful because I hadn't seen him since I was 13 because he was friends of like my parents. And so I met him once when I was like 13, and like seeing him 7 years later was just awesome, because now I can understand him. And he gave me this book, and it's called 10 Answers for Skeptics. And I think it's a wonderful book as far as just kind of answering, some of the biggest like skeptical questions that an atheist might have. And what he did was he interviewed 32, I think it's like 31 or 32 atheists or something like that. And he asked them all these questions. And, it's a really great read. But I'm reading this book last night in my bed over there. And it's wonderful. I'm reading and I'm like, man, this is awesome. But eventually I put down the book and I'm laying down. And the book is great. Like the book is not the reason why I was doubting. But I put down this book that is supposed to answer questions for skepticism against Christianity. And I put this down, and all of a sudden my head starts racing. And I'm thinking of all these things. And my head leads me back to the death of Charlie Kirk. And I have no idea why. Like, I wasn't like premeditating on that. Obviously, I still think it is something that is heavy with, America right now. But I had no reason to think about it at that moment. But I'm meditating on the death of Charlie Kirk. And I'm not thinking about necessarily the tragedy of it or, the biblical implications of how we should respond or anything like that. My head only focuses in on what did Charlie Kirk experience after he died. And so that's when doubt started to creep in, because I think one of the things I struggle with the most as a Christian is the idea of the supernatural. And of course, I believe in it. But it's hard for me to, and it's something I still wrestle with at times. And so when I'm encountered with an idea of the afterlife, I really encountered doubt in that because I couldn't shake this thought that, Charlie Kirk gets shot and he dies, and then that's it. He's experiencing blackness, lack of existence. And this like weight of trying to like fight that thought of, is there an afterlife or is there not? What do we experience when we die? And it struck fear inside of me in a way, because I think since I was a kid, what happens after we die has always been a fear of mine. The biggest fear I think I've ever had was that when we die, we experience nothing anymore. And, there's like the atheist argument, like, oh, well, it didn't bother me before I was born. Why would it bother me after I die? But I think, when, before you were born, you had nothing to compare it to, right? You had nothing to compare your non-existence to, right? But if there is no God and there is, no such thing as an afterlife, then when we die, we lack existence, but we do have something to compare it to. We have, our existence right now to be able to compare it to that. And so I'm looking at that. I'm going to just fix my camera. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about, is there an afterlife or is there not? And I'm wrestling with these thoughts of doubt, and fear is starting to hit my heart that when I die, inevitably, when I hit the grave, that's it. It's lights out for eternity. and I will never exist again. There's no reincarnation. There's no second chances. I will cease to exist for all of eternity. And this short time frame has been left and created for nothing. It hasn't been created at all. And so I'm just wrestling with this. But then I realize in the awakening of all of the evidence we have supporting Jesus. And it's almost like God spoke to me through my doubts of my fear of there not being an afterlife, of there not being a heaven, and you just cease to exist after we die. It's almost like God spoke to me through that, because I'm thinking it just about Jesus in this moment. So no, my mind transfers from fear, is there an afterlife or not, into, okay, wait, who is Jesus? And so we look at all of the evidence surrounding Jesus, over 5,800 Greek manuscripts. We have, so many supporting earlier church fathers, over, I think it's 13,000 quotes from early church fathers quoting the Gospels. We have all this historical evidence piled up towards Jesus. And so when it looks bleak and slim and dark, as far as, is there an afterlife, I can look at the credibility of Jesus and say, okay, well, if Jesus talked about these things and he is who he says he is, then who am I to doubt? I don't have to worry about trying to figure that out, because there's been somebody who's walked before me that has already answered the toughest questions that I don't have the answers to. There's no way I could sit here and tell you if there's an afterlife or not. I don't have that kind of authority. I've never died before, so I don't know. But the one who did die, the one who came back, talked about a heaven and hell. He talked about there being an afterlife. He talked about there being a eternal gift and blessing for those who put their faith in Jesus. And he also talked about an eternal punishment for those who live their lives separate from him, and how justice will be brought upon the sins of the earth and things of that nature. And so it really solidified my faith. It's like, okay, all of our answers can be found in the person of Jesus. And it brings me to Colossians 1 verse 15, where it says that the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. And so I think, like, when Paul is writing this, it further solidifies the faith that we can reconcile our belief in God simply because of the person of Jesus Christ. Because if Jesus Christ is reliable, then everything he talks about is true. If he's unreliable, then everything he talks about is false. I look at other religions like Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism. I look at, just any, whatever sort of religion, big or small, mythologies, Greek and Roman mythology, and all of these things. All of these things don't have the same amount of evidence that Christianity has, right? Judaism obviously has, the Old Testament and things like that. And that is the closest thing we get to Christianity. However, they deny the person of Jesus. And so when it comes to explaining God, they're kind of, they're just kind of like, in the words of Cliff Connectley, up a creek without a paddle. They don't really have a way to explain that, aside from philosophy. But I can explain God simply because of the reliability of Jesus Christ. And so it's like God spoke to me through my doubts and my fear of there not being an afterlife, of me not being able to exist anymore after I die. And he spoke to me and he talked to me and said, "Soul, your faith in Christ has answered all of the questions that you have. So your doubt is not necessarily something that I didn't foresee. It's not necessarily something that I didn't see coming. But you have to remember that everything that you've devoted yourself for the years that you've been doing this, relies and it rests in one person. And that person is, it was, and always will be my Son, Jesus." And so for you, I want to just encourage you, like, if you were struggling with doubt, like, that's okay. That's not something that it's a bad thing. You're not going to hell for doubting, right? One of the biggest things that we need in order to actually step into further faith is a little bit of doubt, right? Because it can take us from this phase of absence of thought into deep and intentional thought about the things of this world and the things of, the supernatural and things of that nature. And so if you're doubting, that is okay. But what I want to encourage you with is, if your answer is not rooted in the person and reliability of Jesus Christ, then you've already lost the argument, right? Everything about what we observe as Christians relies in the hands of Jesus Christ, the person who came 2,000 years ago and lived and talked with people and walked amongst people, and he died a gruesome death, but according to historical evidence, he resurrected from the dead 3 days later. And so now we can put our faith in him, not because it's a blind faith, but it's a faith that is a response to the credibility of Jesus. And so I just really want to encourage you, like, if you are doubting, look to the Gospels. Find out for yourself if Jesus truly is reliable or not. Because if he is, then you have nothing to worry about, because the things that he talked about, there being a God, there being a heaven, there being a hell, there being angels, there being all these things, these wonderful things that we imagine and we talk about and we preach about in the churches. If he is credible, then all of those things that he talked about, they're true. But if he's not, if you read the Gospels and you find for yourself, oh, this Jesus guy just isn't cutting it, then yeah, you don't have to subscribe to those things. But I just wanted to share this because I think doubt, no matter whether you're a non-believer or a new believer or a seasoned believer, doubt is something we all experience, right? It's not something that's exclusive to some and then, kind of left out for others. But doubt is something we all wrestle with. I wrestle with doubt. I've been a Christian for years now. But I just wanted to record this, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. I wasn't going to, but I just wanted to share that because I know doubt is arising in our generation with all of the things that are going on within our society, all of the wicked things. It can be easy to doubt, is there a God? Is there really a God who cares and is all good and is all powerful? It is easy to doubt. But through that doubt, what we can arrive at is a genuine answer that all of our problems rest and abide in the hands of Jesus Christ. And so your doubt is not something that's a weakness, but your doubt, I think, can be a beginning point, a starting point to something greater within your faith. So I just wanted to share that, and I pray that this blesses you. I pray that you learn something. I pray that your doubt moves you from a place of fear into a place of confidence within the person of Jesus. So I pray for you. Love you. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.